All righty. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome one and welcome all to the Junk Shop Library channel. If you are new here, I am your host, Junk Shop of Junk Shop Library. We do many things here on the channel, but what we are gathered for today is Improv Bible Study, where we read every excruciating word of the King James Bible and then dissect it or vivisect it, as the case may be, from a modern atheist humanist perspective. That sounds appealing to you? By all means, stick around, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. If that doesn't sound appealing to you, there's always the hate comment option, and I welcome those as well. I see everybody in the chat. All my regular folks are here. I love it. So happy to see everybody here today. Some of y'all may be wondering who in the world is Wine and Reason in the chat. That's Julie. So y'all know all that. All right. Before we can get to the smiting, we have to get to the thanking. I want to thank you all for being here and for subscribing and having your notifications turned on, which apparently are working for us today. Be still, my beating heart. I also have to thank my wonderful, wonderful patrons. Thank you so much. You see their names scrolling, and I actually went the right direction this time. How must this go? You see their names scrolling there at the bottom of the screen. These are the fantastic folks who are members over at patreon.com/junkshoplibrary for as little as $1 a month, and who contribute not only in a financial way, but in a fantastic moral support and feedbacky way to our ongoing improvements and our ongoing efforts here in the library. And we literally could not be doing what we're doing today without their assistance. So thank you one and thank you all. In alphabetical order, those folks are B, Brainbug, Mark Caesar, Paul Camish, Kim, Linda, the Lone Wanderer, Math Pig, Mama Atheist, Nikki, Rain, and Santa the Same. Thank you all. It means the world. All right. Folks are streaming in the chat. My chat has crashed on both screens, so I'm sorry if I miss anybody who I have not already talked to. I see Geo Sam and his infamous eyeballs in the chat. I see Edward. I see Godless Sewing running in here at the last. Greetings, one and all. And for what may be the first time live, I see Easism Works here in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. All righty. Yeah, Julie points out Amiga Nuts is not here, and neither is Dave, someone pointed out a little further up the chat. So any of my fantastic mods who feel like dropping the links to each other's content here in the chat, please absolutely feel free to do that. We want to make sure everybody's subscribed to everybody and has their notifications turned on so that we can support each other here in this difficult time. Stuttering Chris is with us. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. Oh, and thank you. Yes, it's a little early in the year to be bringing the turtlenecks to the game, but I got myself a little chilly earlier, and the coffee just ain't cutting it today. All righty. Well, the last time we gathered together, we finished the progressively stranger book of Esther, which means it's time for Job. we will be launching into the oldest and one of the longest books of the Bible today. So we're going to be spending some time together here in the book of Job, because while I don't remember how long it is exactly, it's one of the ones I was idly dreading when I first started this project. 42 chapters. Never again. Hello. Good to see you, as always. When I first started this project back more than 18 months ago, dismiss, damn notifications. Sal says, ramble on, I'm working. Oh, have no fear, my friend. I will ramble. That's one thing I'm very, very good at here. But when I first started this project more than 18 months ago, first of all, I thought to myself, this is going to be a goddamn nightmare about halfway through, because we're going to hit Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, all of these long, rambly poetry books that that nobody gives a shit about, including, at the time, me. Aunt Jur, welcome. Good to see you. I also wasn't real worried about it, because I honestly thought that this project was going to crash and burn before we ever hit the 1 year mark. It never honestly occurred to me that this thing would take on the life of its own that it indeed has, or that the community that we find ourselves in today would grow the way that it has. And there was some time there at the beginning where I almost gave up. And at one point, those of you who've been with me long enough, I pretty much did. That was due in equal part to my frustration with the source material, and to some of the other issues that I deal with, which is why we now have Mental Health Thursdays here on the channel. Thank you, Linda, for the collaboration yesterday, by the way. That was great fun. Oh, thank you, Sal. In retrospect, I'm glad I didn't too. But there was a time somewhere around the early part of Leviticus where I just did not see the point. Oh my gosh, I was dragging, and it took effort to get in front of the camera every couple of days. But it was about that time that the community started to build, and I got to know some of y'all, and some of y'all wonderful folks in the chat, and some of the folks who I know will be watching this back after the fact. And the encouragement that y'all have given me along the way has given me the strength to continue with this interesting endeavor I have set for myself. And I thank you one and all for all of that. Hey, One Ring in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. And Doc says says he just won't get a good day's sleep until I get a thorough smiting. Well, there's a little smiting pretty much straight out the gate in the book of Job, if memory serves. So, having rambled on for a while, we will now launch into why we're all here to begin with. Brace yourselves, y'all. It's the word of the Lord. Atheist Donna and Spooky Bed Hair. Good to see both of y'all. How are y'all doing today, tonight, to whenever it is for y'all? The book of Job, chapter 1. Here goes nothing. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God, and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep, and 3,000 camels, and 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God, and escheweth evil? And Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast thou not made an hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power, only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job, and said, The oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them, and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep, and the servants, and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, The Chaldeans made out 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away, yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and only I am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And only I am escaped alone to tell thee. Then Job arose and rent his mantle, and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground, and worshipped, and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. And there we have Job chapter 1. All right, well, hopefully none of us can stand up and say we had a bad day. Oh, Juror says, I don't understand the excessive use of yea. Is it like the Canadian A? Yea, it's just it's an affirmation. It's like the Southern truth to tell, or I tell you what. It's the writing equivalent of a verbal tick that just comes in and says, this indeed is the truth. if I get a shot at this gnat, I'm going to take it. So I'm going to try not to clap right next to the microphone, but yeah. Julie says, were the daughters killed too, but not worth mentioning in that second clause? Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to pull that up for a second. Yeah, because you notice the daughters were eating and drinking in this apparently continual rowdiness and feast that goes on at the brothers' houses. But well, it was worth mentioning that they were there, and while presumably they were killed when the house fell down and killed all the menfolk, who cares? They're just women. Welcome to the Bible. One Ring says, if you care to make a dare, I'd make a bet with you. Yeah, exactly. That's this whole damn book of Job essentially boils down to this weird proprietary pissing contest between God and the adversary. First named appearance of Satan in the book. And get, yeah, Roger, like, you know. Yeah, exactly. But not as the devil, you know, not the creeping and crawling, temptation peddling fiddler of European folk tradition. Just as a member of the celestial court. And at this, you know, for once, this book is actually laid out so far in a fairly decent literary fashion, which, if you were with us through my belly aching and moaning through Nehemiah and Ezra, where the approach to chronology could be generously described as indifferent. This is actually written like something that's intended to be read, or at least easy to follow. So they lay out the fact of the existence of Job and the great substance thereof, and his many oxen and assen and camelsen. Hadn't got to use that jokey construction in a while. That's what we call in the trade a callback. Yeah, brain bug, exactly. Not the heavy metal devil yet. And Edward, I'm honestly not sure when this was written in terms of its relationship to the Babylonian exile. I know that it's the oldest book that we have that's included in mainstream Bibles. Beyond that, I don't know. And yes, thank you, One Ring. A prosecutor in Jewish mythology, sort of the yeah, and again, as this is an old fucking book, Job, and so it's still dealing with the concept of the heavenly court that's sort of passively mentioned in Genesis. You know, with the sons of God and the you know, that weird insistence upon God sometimes being we and sometimes being he. But in amongst the heavenly court there is Satan, whose job it is to be devil's advocate, essentially, devil's advocate and prosecutor. So one day God's holding court, and all of his sons, whatever that means, are there, and Satan also as well. God looks up and says, "Hey, you, hadn't seen you in a hot minute. Where have you been?" That's how it reads in the Aramaic. And Satan says, "Oh, here and there, thither and yon." God says, well, while you were hithering, thithering, thither, and yawning, did you happen to notice Job, who loves me oh so much? Satan says, yeah, what about it? He's rich. He's never had a hard day in his life. Of course he's a big fan of yours. Hast thou not made an hedge round about him? And God says, huh. Well, you know, I never thought of it that way. Satan says, you know, if you were to fuck with his life, I bet you he'd get pissed. God says, well, you know, I'm really too busy for that, but if you want to, you go ahead and run a diagnostic test on old Job's faithfulness. And Satan wanders off and proceeds to smite all of Job's shit. Gets his camels stolen, gets his sheep taken, gets his servants slaughtered. And oh, by the way, also his kids get killed by a hurricane. It sucks. Oh. Hey, Lone Wanderer, good to see you. And so Job, having had the worst series of news that he's ever had in his life, obviously does what we all would do and praises God for no readily discernible reason. Because goodness knows, if all my camels were to be stolen by Chaldeans and all of my servants slaughtered except for four, and all of my children to be killed by a fallen down roof, the first thing I would think of to do would be to do a quick mourning ritual. And hey, Amiga Nuts, hey Stool, good to see y'all. And then proceed to give thanks to God for having had the experience of having had camels and sheepses and oxes and asses and childrenses. I don't fucking know, y'all. It makes as much sense as any other damn thing in this book. Shit. All right. Oh, yes. The weirdness. Did you catch the weirdness in amongst all the weirdness? Why would you? You're not telepathic. You don't have any idea what I'm about to say. Well, apparently these big rowdy parties that Job's kids are accustomed to throwing for each other and for their friends and relations and what have you is a source of some stress and aggravation to Mr. Job, because he's worried that they're gonna commit thought crime. So he's forever, continually, as it says in the book, he is continually doing preemptive sacrifices to God in order to make sure that if they blasphemed in their heart, they would be forgiven. Because, you know, you can fuck up as bad as you want to, but as so long as somebody sets some dead animals on fire and God can smell it real good, you're probably going to be okay. Yeah, exactly. One ring. Well, you know, those worldly parties will get you. All right. Well, Job's ready to thanks be to God for having had the experience of having kids and great wealth, even though he doesn't have them anymore. Which leads us to chapter 2. Christopher's in the chat, so we got to say hecking. Weird hecking book. 2. Again there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, From whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movedst me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came, every one from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, for they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they lifted up their eyes afar off, and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one his mantle, and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. And that's chapter 2. Yep, finally got some smiting. Apparently Sal's been smoked with the absence of coffee. Ugh. Wherein hast thou offended him? All right, so same shit, different day, right? God's holding court. Satan comes up. God says, where you been? Satan says, here and there. God says, ain't Job the bee's knees? Satan says, well, he's still alive, you know. People will give up anything for the sake of still being alive. But tell you what, you hurt him bad enough, I guarantee you he's going to blaspheme. God says, well, okay, give it a shot. I'm curious to see what will happen. So Satan goes out and gives Job the world's worst fucking case of acne all over his body. So Job goes out, because he's all unclean and shit now. Goes out and sits down on the rubbish heap outside of town, takes himself a little broken piece of pottery and starts to scratch it because his boils are itchy. Yeah. And his friends, his 3 friends. Well, no, I skipped over the wife. Silly me. I'm as bad as an Old Testament writer. I forgot about the woman. His wife, which is apparently all he's got left in the world, unless they've forgotten to mention the daughters and they survived the hurricane. Who fucking knows? I'm sure they'll tell us if they come in necessary to the tale, though they probably won't get fucking names. Because the wife sure doesn't. His wife comes out to him where he's sitting on the rubbish heap and says, "You really still hadn't cussed at God, even after all this? We done lost our sons and our camels and our sheep and our donkeys and our did I mention our servants and our servants and something else? Something else. Oh, that's right, daughters. Yeah, we lost them too. Go ahead and blaspheme so you can get your miserable ass out of existence so that God will smite thee." And Job says, "You out of your fucking mind?" That's how it reads in the Aramaic. It says, "Are you out of your fucking mind? You're talking crazy talk. We've been blessed by God all our lives. How are we going to blaspheme now?" And she vanishes into thin fucking air, never to be heard from again, as far as we can tell. And he commences to keep on sitting there, just all miserable and beboiled and shit. And his 3 friends, 3. His 3 friends hear that he has had a bad run of luck and come to console him. They get near the town and they see somebody sitting on the rubbish heap, scratching himself bloody with a broken piece of pottery. And they say, "That can't, no, that can't be. Oh my God, it is him." And they take dirt and throw it on their heads. Because that's how you mourn, you understand. And they come over and they sit down next to him for a week. And that's the end of the chapter. I understand the customs were different back then, but I really don't understand some of this stuff. Sit in silence for a week? I mean, I've told y'all before, I'm not a crazy extrovert. I just play one on your television. But even as introverted as I am, I don't know that I could sit in perfect silence on a rubbish heap for a week while my friend scratches himself with a broken potsherd. But they manage it. I know there's at least one person in the chat who has written papers about this book. Am I missing something? Is there more to be drug out of these 2 chapters than I've got so far? I hadn't really.
Well, since this is the oldest book, right? It's this is the first written down recording of sitting Shiva, which I was trying to type in the chat. I just don't know how to spell it. It kept coming up as Shiva. Yeah, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So
That's an interesting point that I did not catch.
yeah, so I was going to be excited about that.
Yeah. So I don't know if y'all could hear that or not. I hadn't really gotten used to this new microphone. But Julie said it's the first written occurrence, at any rate, of the sitting of Shiva, which neither of us are sure enough how to spell type. But the sitting, the traditional gathering and mourning of Jewish people, which is no longer done in silence and fasting. It is now done in a much more interesting way, with feasting and the telling of tales, which is how I want to be remembered. And once I shuffle off this mortal coil, I'll tell you that. Aunt Jur says, how come God didn't kill Job's friends too? Maybe because they were needed as literary devices? Yeah. Well, let's face it. Those of you who know the book of Job, this would be a short fucking book if it weren't for these three friends. Fasting, Edward. Fasting. The not eating. God, it's almost like I've encouraged an open dialogue of free and frank expression around here. Oh, it is spelled like the God. Okay, good. Because I couldn't think how else it would be spelled if not that. But I was trying to rack my brain while I was prattling on, and I couldn't think of how it was actually spelled. Thank you, Lone Wanderer. All right, chapter 3. Here we go. Wow, this my poor long-suffering Bible going to die on me before we get through the Psalms. I can feel the spine giving out. All right, chapter 3. After this, opened Job his mouth, and cursed his day. And Job spake, and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man-child conceived. Let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Lo, let that night be solitary. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it that curse the day, who are ready to raise up their mourning. Let the stars of the twilight thereof be dark. Let it look for light, but have none, neither let it see the dawning of the day. Because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hid sorrow from mine eyes. Why died not I from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? Why did the knees prevent me, or why the breasts that I should suck? For now should I have lain still and been quiet. I should have slept, then had I been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, which build desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or as an hidden untimely birth I had not been, as infants which never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. There the prisoners rest together, they hear not the voice of the oppressor. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Wherefore is light given to him that is in misery, and life unto the bitter in soul, which long for death, but it cometh not, and dig for it more than for hid treasures, which rejoice exceedingly, and are glad when they can find the grave. Why is light given to the man whose way is hid, and whom God hath hedged in? For my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the waters. For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came. And there's chapter 3. It's not going to take as long as I was afraid to get through Job, because it's ancient poetry, which means it's a lot of beautifully phrased but ultimately tedious repetition. Because this whole chapter is just Job saying, it would have been better for me had I never been born, because this is a miserable life that I'm leading right now. Hey, Ilya, welcome. Good to see you. And Crazy Catnip, hello. Yes, thank you. Whoops, hang on. It went away. All right, there we go. Technology and junk shop. Okay, so after sitting in silence for 7 days, Job has had time to come up with this eloquent little poem, and says it would have been better for me had I either not been born, or been stillborn, or died immediately after birth, and then I could just be down among the dead men in Sheol. Except it takes half a fucking page to do it, because this is a book of poetry. And like altogether too many books of poetry, it goes on at some length after the point has been made. Not that I would know anything about that. Just coffee. Yes, exactly. The word breakfast. Yeah, y'all still talking about the fasting there in the chat. Good for you. Thank you. Yep. Nope. That's all I got. That's all there is. Chapter 3 is just Job saying, "Oh, misery me." And yet still, he does not blaspheme. Chapter 4. Oh dear. Lone Wanderer says, every time I say it's just coffee, the baby Jesus cries. Oh, is that what that horrible wailing noise is? Constantly and incessantly the entire time I'm in. I thought it was something to do with a fish tank, but nope, it's a baby crying in the distance. All right, chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, if we essay to commune with thee, wilt thou be grieved? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, thou hast instructed many, and thou hast strengthened the weak hands. Thy words have upholden him that was falling, and thou hast strengthened the feeble knees. But now it has come upon me. I'm sorry, y'all. I can read, I promise. But now it is come upon thee, and thou faintest. It toucheth thee, and thou art troubled. Is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, who ever perished, being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. The roaring of the lion, and the voice of the fierce lion, and the teeth of the young lions are broken. The old lion perisheth for lack of prey, and the stout lion's whelps are scattered abroad. Now a thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth on men, fear came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face, the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern the form thereof. An image was before mine eyes. There was silence, and I heard a voice, saying, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his Maker? Behold, he put no trust in his servants, and his angels he charged with folly. How much less in them that dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, which are crushed before the moth. They are destroyed from morning to evening. They perish forever without any regarding it. Doth not their excellency which is in them go away? They die, even without wisdom. And that's chapter 4. Oh, Ilya's closing in on it. Almost up to 1,000. Yes. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Okay. So Eliphaz the Temanite, a good friend if ever there was one, turns to Job after Job's lamentations and says, "You must have fucked up somehow." Thank you, Amiga Nuts. King of the Shills, hard at work. Yes, One Ring, exactly. Is that the "it's your fault" friend? Yep. Because having held his tongue for 7 days, the Eliphaz the Temanite decides that he knows exactly what his friend needs to hear in his misery. And so he takes up his discourse and says, "You must have done something wrong, because righteous people do not get so smoked as thou hast been smoked. You must have done something bad. Bad, I say." And then he goes on at quite some length, but that's what it boils down to. And then he goes into this weird side thing where he starts talking about his sleep paralysis for no readily discernible reason. You know, I woke in the night and there was a figure before my eyes and I could not move. I don't know. He's been sitting there silent for so long that he doesn't know what he's doing anymore. And he tells his friend that it's his own fault that his kids are dead and his camels are stolen by Chaldeans, and also that that he himself has sleep paralysis. All right. Well, there you go. I mean, I understand from a literary standpoint. I mean, you can see this coming, right? He's got, his wife has told him to curse God and die. He's got 3 friends, and one of them comes in saying, "It must be your fault. You must have done something wrong, even in the secrecy of your heart." So that means there's going to be 2 more perspectives from his other 2 friends, and probably a rejoinder from Job after each one. Right? I mean, just from a literature standpoint, that's what's got to happen, given how we've set it up thus far. And who knows? Maybe his other friends are going to reflect on their own aberrant psychological states in the middle of their accusatory poems. I mean, this is not the strangest aside we've had in this book, in the Bible book, but it's up there. "My dear friend, you must have sinned before God, because no righteous man is ever smitten with such misery as has smitten thee. And by the way, I've got sleep paralysis, and it sucks. It's scary." What? I mean, it's enough to make you think this is a record of an actual conversation, because nobody would have written. I mean, it makes no fucking sense. It's as good as a legitimate stream of consciousness speech. I mean, and it's some fucking Mrs. Dalloway level free association. And he's still talking. He didn't shut up at the end of the chapter. He continues to talk into the next one. See what he's got to say in chapter 5. Call now, if there be any that will answer thee, and to which of the saints wilt thou turn? For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his habitation. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed in the gate, neither is there any to deliver them. Whose harvest the hungry eateth up, and taketh it even out of the thorns, and the robber swalloweth up their substance. Although affliction cometh not forth of the dust, neither doth trouble spring out of the ground, yet man is born unto trouble as the sparks fly upward. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth, and sendeth waters upon the fields. To set up on high those that be low, that those which mourn may be exalted to safety. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. But he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. So the poor hath hope, and iniquity stoppeth her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Therefore despise thou not the chastening of the Almighty, for he maketh sore, and bindeth up. He woundeth, and his hands make whole. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and shalt not sin. Thou shalt know also that thy seed shall be great, and thine offspring as the grass of the earth. Thou shalt come to thy grave in a full age, like as a shock of corn cometh in his season. Lo, this, we have searched it, so it is. Hear it, and know thou it, for thy good. And that's chapter 5. More of Eliphaz saying, if you fuck up, you reap the rewards. And if you had been righteous, truly righteous in your heart, you would not be in this mess to begin with. And then he counsels him, because apparently he doesn't think Job's smart enough, or maybe he figures he's distracted with his boils, to figure out that it would go the other way too. Says, just cry out to God, say you're sorry for whatever it was that you did, and then you'll be fine. And then proceeds to go on at some considerable length about how fine Job will be, and the ways in which Job will be fine, and what would the opposite of the wages of sin be? That he's gonna be fine. As one ring says, just repent, everything will be better. Yeah, Ilya, because that's how life works. Exactly. Rainbug, you were away for a minute. You didn't miss much. Julie points out that this book is also the source of our culture's belief that when bad things happen to you, it's your fault. Exactly. It'll be interesting to see what Job's rebuttal period reads like. But there's not... I mean, that's 2 chapters that could have been condensed into just a very few verses were it not a poetry book. But since we're apparently knee-deep in Jehovah's chapbook here, we're going to spend a lot of time with the artistic repetition. I will tell you that chapter ended with the end of the quotation marks, and the next one starts with Job's rejoinder to Eliphaz the Temanite. Yeah, exactly. It's called life. It's not always fair and has nothing to do with a sky daddy. And I think we're going to button it on that. We've been going just shy of an hour, and we've gotten out of the narration and deep into the poetry, and we've dispensed with the wife's speech and Eliphaz's speech, and we're ready for Job's rebuttal period. He will have 10 minutes. Sorry, I watch entirely too many formal debates. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I was afraid that given the reputation of Job, nobody was going to show up. But, silly me, all my friends are here. It's moving faster than I was afraid it would too, because I had forgotten just how repetitive ancient Hebrew poetry could be, which gives me some consolation about the fact that we've got Job and Psalms barreling down upon us. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Edward. If you hadn't hit like already, do me a favor, if you would, and just hit the like button right below the video. It costs you nothing, and it helps me an inordinate amount. You wouldn't think it would, but it does, as my fellow content creators here in the chat are all too aware. Drop a comment if you liked the initialization period of the book of Job, and because that'll help get us out to a wider audience, and it's going to be a slog, y'all. I know I said it's moving faster than I was afraid it would, but that ain't saying much. We got 35 chapters and change staring down the road at us. All right. Well, yes, we finally got some smiting. We're looking forward to the behemoth. It's a long ways yet till behemoth ring. So, like, share, and subscribe, y'all. Make sure you're all subscribed to each other, too. And as we always say before we head out of here, everybody take care, be safe, stand against hate. And we will see you again on, what's today, Friday? On Monday. Same time, same station. More Job. Wear your fucking mask. Wash your hands. Bye. Oh, shit. You go straight to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. We'll see y'all on Monday. Take care.